What wicked problem are you trying to solve? What is your role in finding a solution? Try to remember the moment in your life when you decided you had to do something about it. What motivated you to care about the issue? Was it an influential person in your life, or an event, or something you read or heard somewhere? This is the beginning of your story. And in this story, you are the main character. And that moment in your life when you decided to act is called the inciting incident. And every main character in every story has one. Now, imagine a world sometime in the future where you succeeded, where the problem you're trying to solve doesn't exist anymore. What does it look like? This is the ending to your story, a bright and hopeful ending that paints a world that is better because of your contribution to a greater cause. But how can you take this narrative of a brighter future and embed it in the minds of your audience? I like Peter Groover's metaphor of the Trojan horse, which explains the power of storytelling as a way to deliver an idea and spring people into action. Just like the giant wooden horse was seen by the Trojans as a gift, which allowed them to open their gates, not knowing that the enemy was hidden inside. Just like that, a good story uses emotional connection to open up the brain of the receiver to embrace a new idea. For this to happen, especially when dealing with contentious environmental issues, we need to tailor our stories to connect with our key audiences. Storytelling expert Michael Margolis points out that we need to meet people where they currently stand. Understanding the common values that your audience shares with your story allows for a connection between their current view of the world and your narrative of possibility. But because wicked problems are composed of a complex web of socioeconomic, political, and environmental issues, a systemic approach is required to tackle them. This makes it impossible to create one single storyline that can take people from problem to solution. Instead, the larger narrative needs to be composed of smaller stories that help connect your community members with the different issues that add up to the larger problem. But how can you connect all of these stories together in a way that makes sense to the larger community? Well, the entertainment and advertising industries have been doing this for a while, and they call it Transmedia storytelling, which is a fancy term for telling one story across multiple platforms. Each platform adds something unique, and according to Dr. Henry Jenkins, having multiple points of entry creates participation and motivation. The Avengers and Star Wars come to mind as the best known examples. This would be akin to coordinating all the messaging efforts around climate change to create a more strategic narrative, instead of the current individual, uncoordinated efforts which create a narrative that we have no control over and that ends up being less effective in painting a common vision for the future. A great example from the social sector is the Half the Sky movement, which uses a film, mobile games, a book, celebrity endorsements, and social media to garner support for oppressed women worldwide. Transmedia storytelling can bring people together to co-create a larger narrative, with each individual bringing their own story and connecting it to build something greater. Social media has made a storyteller out of each of us, and harnessing the power of individual storytellers who can take pieces of the larger narrative and make it their own is a key factor to the success of any narrative of change. But even in face-to-face settings, efforts like Apple Shop have offered a voice to community members to share their stories and create a collective narrative. In the end, each person will absorb your story from where they stand and make sense of it based on their own narrative. So the outcome cannot be the same for every person. Instead, your story should give the recipient a narrative nudge that can slightly divert their personal storyline. This nudge will help connect their story to the larger strategic narrative of change that will help your community find collective solutions to a wicked problem. So, my question to you is, what was the narrative nudge that diverted your own personal storyline to get you to care about the wicked problem that you are trying to solve?